find the reading printed in your worship guide. The pastor will serve as narrator. He'll read the part of Peter, and I will read the words of Jesus. This reading is based on John chapter 21, verses 1 through 19.
Jesus appeared again to his disciples. It was by the Sea of Tiberias, and it happened this way. Simon Peter, Thomas, who was also called Didymus, Nathanael from Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and the two other disciples were together. Simon Peter said,
I am going out to fish.
Simon Peter climbed aboard and dragged the net ashore. It was full of large fish, 153, but even with so many, the net was not torn.
Come and have breakfast.
fish. This was now the third time Jesus appeared to his disciples after he was raised from the dead. When they had finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter,
Simon, son of John, do you truly love me more than these?
Yes, Lord, you know that I love you.
Feed my lambs. Simon, son of John, do you truly love me?
Yes, Lord, you know that I love you.
Take care of my sheep. Simon, son of John, do you love me?
Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him the third time, do you love me?
Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you.
Feed my sheep. I tell you the truth. When you were younger, you dressed yourself and went where you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands and someone else will dress you and lead you where you do not want to go.
Jesus said this to indicate the kind of death by which Peter would glorify God. Then he said to him,
Follow me.
lectionary readings because it's a reminder, it's one of those stories that comes together that reminds us of the whole of Jesus' ministry. And in fact, in John's gospel, John does this very curious thing, particularly as we get toward the end of the Gospel of John. He does this thing where he reaches back to the beginning and he reminds us of things that have already happened and lets us know that God continues to use things familiar things, in order to get our attention, in order to help us connect the dots. Because sometimes we don't really know how the dots are connected. We just know there's some dots, amen? But John does a really good job of helping connect the dots. And you may be like, well, okay, I know in my life I got some dots, preacher, but I don't know what you're talking about with this Gospel of John thing. Well, let me just try to paint a picture for you. When we come to this story here in John chapter 21, this is after the resurrection. So Jesus is appearing to his disciples after the resurrection, and this says that this is the third time that he has appeared to them after the resurrection. You know, the first time he appeared to them, they were gathered there in Jerusalem in that upper room where he had told them to wait for him. You remember, he came and he spoke to them and he went on about his business, and then Thomas came and they said, hey, Jesus was here, and he's like, get out of here. And they're like, yeah, he was here. And he was like, oh, I don't believe that. I won't believe unless I can touch the nail prints in his hands and all those kinds of things. And then a few days later, Jesus walked through the wall while they were all gathered there in that room and said, Thomas, here you go. And Thomas said, my Lord and my God. And so now here the disciples are, they've been out fishing, and this is just like the story we have in Luke's gospel, in Luke chapter 5, where they had been out fishing all night, and then Jesus came and, said, push on out a little further, and he told them, drop your nets on this side. They're like, oh, Jesus, but we were out here all night. We were out here all night. We didn't catch anything. What are you talking about, man? We're cleaning the nets. We're ready to go home. We're sleepy. We're tired. The last thing we want to do
when we're sleepy and tired is to do more work. Amen? So Jesus tells them to do some more work. This is a retelling of that same kind of scenario. But this time they come in from their night of fishing and Jesus is there. He has a little fire burning on the beach. He tells them, cast your nets out, In true fashion, they're like, come on. But when they dropped the nets and they pulled up this great catch of fish, it was Thomas who says, it is the Lord. See, he has a way of doing the familiar to gain our attention. See, remember in Luke 5 when he had them lower those nets and they had that great catch of fish and all their other friends came along and then they got out of the boat and they were praising them for all of that wonderful catch. It was then that Jesus said, I will teach you to be fishers of men. Come, follow me. Using the familiar to get their attention. He says, drop your nets, and then they come and they join him there on the seashore. It's the same way that when Jesus walked to Emmaus with those two disciples who were lamenting over the death of Jesus, and they invited that stranger into their home, and as he broke bread and lifted it up before them, it was then that they said, it is the Lord. Using the familiar to get their attention. The same was true on that resurrection morning when Mary Magdalene went to that tomb. And she looked and she saw that he was not there, and she was engaging the gardener, and she said, please, if you have taken him away, let me know where you have taken him so that I may tend to him. And that man said, Mary. He called her by name, and when he called her by name, she said, it is the Lord. Using the familiar to get their attention. Same is true here in this text in John chapter 21. For you may remember that on the night in which Jesus was crucified, that all of the trials were taking place and they were marching him back and forth. Oh, I wish I had time to get into that for you, but they were marching him back and forth and all this chaos and confusion was going on, and Jesus' disciples were there around the edges just trying to figure out what was happening, trying to figure out how could this be. And this man spotted Peter by the fire and he says, aren't you one of his disciples? And Peter said, no. And they go on, and then the man was like, but I'm pretty sure I saw you with them. Aren't you one of his disciples? No. But I heard you. You're wearing the same clothes. That's you. No. 3 times he denied being one of Jesus' followers. And look at what Jesus does here when he encounters Peter on the seashore. He asks him 3 questions, just like the man by the fire. Ask him 3 questions. Jesus says, do you love me? Peter says, yes. Jesus asked him a second time, do you love me? Peter says, yes. And he asked him a third time, do you love me? And Peter said, oh Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. But here's the curious thing about this love. When Jesus asked Peter, do you love me? He asked him, do you have an agape love for me? Do you have this godlike love for me? And Peter's response was, I love you as my brother. And Jesus asked him again, do you have this godlike love for me? And Peter responded, I love you like a brother. Because see, those are two different words in the Greek. Agape and philo are two different words that are translated as love. And agape being that godly, godlike, unconditional love. And philo, which is where we get Philadelphia from, the city of brotherly love, is that type of love that comes from a bond that cannot be broken, a bond between brothers. So twice Jesus asked him, do you have godly love for me? And twice Peter said, I love you. You're my friend. You're my brother. And the third time Jesus asked the question, he changed it. And he says, Peter, do you love me like a brother? And that's when Peter breaks and says, Lord, you know all things. You know I love you like a brother. I have this brotherly bond with you that shall not be broken. And each time Peter responds in the affirmative, Jesus tells him to do something. Tells him to feed my sheep. Tend to my sheep. Feed my lambs. And he's saying to him, if you love me, then love who I love. Care for that which I care for. If you love me. Oh, but that's not the breakthrough today. Now, you've been in church your whole life, right? Except for those 2 weeks back in 82. Except for those 2 weeks back in 82. You've been in church your whole life. Have you ever seen acolytes in church? Oh, and from your, and this is unrehearsed, so everybody be ready. So in your experience of those 2 weeks in 82, when you saw acolytes in church, what were they doing?
Lighting the candles.
They were lighting the candles. Great, great. And in other traditions, so like in the Roman Catholic tradition, and the Orthodox tradition, and some of the higher Lutheran traditions and whatnot, if you go and you go to a service, you'll see that there are acolytes. And not only do they light the candles and extinguish them, they participate in the procession. They also bring in the Holy Bible and place it on the altar. If there's a high cross, they'll bring it in and place it. They'll do all those things. And they do all those things because they are helpers. Okay? They are helpers. They are ones who are accompanying the liturgy and helping things to move along. Okay? So that's what the acolytes do. Now, you okay just hanging out with me for a little bit? You can see I only have these 4 little lines right here, so we won't be here a long time. Okay? Now, the reason I wanted Kim to come is because I want us to understand this concept of what Jesus does. So we dealt with this thing about love, this godly love and this brotherly love, this love you, the bond that cannot be broken. And we named this thing that Jesus says to Peter to feed my sheep, to tend to my lambs, to feed my sheep, to love those whom I love, to care for that which I would care for. And then there's this third thing that we need to deal with. And here's the breakthrough. This third thing is the last thing that Jesus says to Peter and those who were gathered there. He says, follow me. Now remember, he had already called all of his disciples. He had already called them. At the beginning of his ministry, he called them, deputized them, and sent them out. And walked with them. And now he's gone through his entire ministry, dead, buried, third day, rose from the dead, ascended into heaven, and sits at the right hand of God the Father Almighty. From thence he shall come to judge the quick and the dead. You know it. You memorized it. You got it. So if he had already called them, why say to them again, follow me? Well, because this time, he means something a little bit different than he meant before. Because the first time he said, follow me, this is what he meant. Follow me. Pay attention to what I do. This time, when he says follow me, he uses a slightly different word, and it's the word from which we get our English word acolyte. As the one who accompanies, the one who comes alongside, the one who assists. And so when Jesus says to Peter, do you love me like a brother? Do we have a bond that shall not be broken? And Peter says, yes, Lord, you know all things. And Jesus says, then feed my lamb. And he says, follow me. He says, accompany me. Come alongside me. Assist me. So this time, what he means is you lock arms with me, and we will form a bond that shall never, ever be broken. No more denying me like you did by that fire that night. That stuff is over. No more of me having to speak your name for you to know who I am. But this time, I want you to lock up with me. I want you to assist me. I want you to help me move things forward. And I want you to do it knowing that we are bound together forever. So let me show you what that looks like now. This time, when he says, follow me, this is what he's talking about.
But now, he's by the water. Yes. Those same waters out of which we were all baptized. Yes. And Jesus says, come, let's follow me. Yes. Lock arms with me. Hold up with me. Go where I go. Do what I do. Say what I say. And it'll all be all right. Because we're together. Because you love me. And because you love me, you'll be who I need to be fed. You'll tend to who needs to be tended to. You'll do it the way I would do it. Why? Because I'm right there with you. Why? Because I'm in it with you. Why? Because I'll never leave you. Why? Because I'll never forsake you. Why? Because I want you to be made whole. Why? Because you're better than you think you are. Why? Because I'll be better to you than you ever been to yourself. Follow me. Don't follow yourself. Don't try to do this on your own. Follow me. Amen.